Good morning. Today is June 30th. I'm your host, Francesca Warren, and this is the education news that you need to know. Now, I'm coming to you today not because of this man. This right here is Dred Scott. This was Dred Scott. He was a former slave, and the decision that the Supreme Court made today to not ban birthright citizenship, I think this is a great history lesson for those who do not understand what was at stake today and what was affirmed today. All right. First and foremost, birthright citizenship became the law in 1868 under when the 14th Amendment was ratified in the aftermath of the Civil War, in part due to Dred Scott. Dred Scott, he was, of course, a slave. Him and his wife, whose name was Harriet, unsuccessfully sued for the freedom of themselves and their two daughters in the Dred Scott versus Stanford case of 1857. This is commonly referred to as the Dred Scott decision, and the Scotts claimed they should be granted freedom because Dred had lived in Illinois and the Wisconsin Territory for 4 years, where slavery was illegal, and laws in those jurisdictions said that slave owners gave up their rights to slaves if they stayed for an extended time. Now, this was a landmark case. The U.S. Supreme Court decided 7-2 against Scott, finding neither he nor any persons of African ancestry could claim citizenship in the United States, and therefore Dred could not sue his enslavers. Now, I want you to think about that. There was a huge uproar about this, and people were outraged. Okay, now this sets the stage. Now, people were outraged by this decision, and this made the tensions between North and South even worse. And eventually the Civil War happens. Well, in 1863, we know that President Abraham Lincoln, the Emancipation Proclamation, and post the Civil War, you're going to have the 13th and 14th Amendments. And so up until that point, Dred and his family were still enslaved. However, in 1857, in May, he was freed, manumitted, but he died of tuberculosis a year later. In 1868, birthright citizenship becomes the law when the 14th Amendment was ratified in the aftermath of the Civil War, in part to ensure that former slaves could be citizens. This was brought up again in the 1800s. In the case, there was a Wong Kim Ark. He was a man born in the United States to Chinese parents, and it was expanded to include children of immigrants. Now, I want to tell you this. Until recently, immigration was seen as a positive thing on the right. Many of your Republican legislators are children of immigrants. Ketanji Brown Jackson, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, she really wrote this statement today in her dissent. She stated, "What is more, this alternative account pitches Black Americans against immigrants that could prevent a return in any form to slavery and race-based subordination was to link the fates of all." So I'm bringing you this history lesson because people are seeing that, there was an attack on birthright citizenship, and people are not connecting that this goes back to slavery. And the end goal for people on this, for people who Trump and the administration who wanted to ban it, and they use the excuse that illegal aliens are committing crimes and all of these things, is because if they could deny citizenship to immigrants, ultimately, if they could get it overturned, the number one, they could also deny citizenship to Black Americans whose ancestors were formerly enslaved. So I want you to think about that. Grab your children, make sure they know this history. Don't let it be lost.